Greetings and welcome to Hexed Encountered. I'm Joe. In this video, we'll be doing a first look at the game 1985 Under an Iron Sky. This is from Thin Red Line Games. It is the first module in their series that depicts a NATO versus Warsaw Pact war in Central Europe in 1985, as you might have gathered. So this is designed by Fabrizio Visnello and Marco Cimino. And as I said, it's from Thin Red Line Games. And it's a nice, large, thick box. So here on the side, you can just see what you've got in here, right? And for those of you who hate it when I read the back of the box, there is nothing on the back of the box here, okay? And here we see it says the decreasing destabilization of the political and economic situation in the Soviet Union is undercutting our positions in the world. The pride and honor of the Soviet people must be restored in full. Public Declaration of the State Committee for the State of Emergency in the USSR, June 11th, 1985. All right, so let's open the box and look inside. All right, so we have some cards. Event cards, apparently. Okay, in shrink. This is an interesting 20-sided die. It's very bright. Okay. And we have a poster. This is kind of cool. It's too bad the top got bent. But yeah, that's the box art there. It's some tanks in a German village, I guess. That's not looking so good here. Okay, then we have player aids. This is like a player aid booklet. So here's the terrain effects chart. Okay, you can kind of see got plane and high plane. And the effects, Arctic plane. A lot of stuff in here. Let's see what else we've got. This kind of looks like that's the back. This would maybe be the front. Here you have some units, okay? So we've got a combat unit front, right? You can see the size. That would be a division. Special category 1, the nation. We've got the Soviet flag there. Designation, the deployment. Its attack rating, its flak rating, and its defense rating. And then there's the back. Okay, you've got HQ unit here. That's Swedish, apparently. And we've got an artillery unit, a mobile flak unit, a fixed flak unit, some F-18s, C-130 flying the Canadian flag, German helicopter, West German, naval units, all kinds of stuff here, bases legend, special codes, unit size, and then unit types. Okay, and on the inside, all kinds of tables and stuff. So, ground movement costs, aircraft flight path, fatigue level, helicopter movement, naval movement, weather table, convoy supply delivery, naval movement allowance, fatigue, of course, at the top. Then we've got our ground combat table. So it looks odds based here. You can see 1 to 2, 1 to 1, 2 to 1, 3 to 1, 4, 5, 6, and 7 to 1 from left to right. And then your combat modifiers as well. Okay, and then I'm assuming these are your D20 die roll results. So if you are at a +7 and you roll a 2 to 12, You're in the A1 column. And then A1, attacker must lose 1 step. So you got your keys here. Cadre rating change, electronic warfare. Okay, next page. This one has ground combat modifiers on it. NATO cadre ratings, Warsaw Pact cadre ratings, other cadres, and SSM chemical strike, that's surface-to-surface missile. The air combat table, air combat value versus evasion value. And then again, you have your modifiers at the bottom, your results. Step destroyed is red, step damaged, abort. So you can see the reds. There's some 0s and 1s. And then you've got interception modifiers and pilots. Okay, I'm assuming that's pilot quality, perhaps. And, here, what do we have here? Ground strike table. The SEAD table, revolt table. Down here you got flak fire and helicopters. You have evasion modifiers, task force anti-air modifiers, helicopter interception, flak fire, results, and then neuro modifiers for the other stuff up here. And next page is nuclear attack table, nuclear contamination, raid ingress table with the flak there, radioactive decay table, raid assault table. Down here we've got naval combat and missile defense table, detection levels, naval interception, all this stuff, screening. This is pretty in-depth here. Tension, transport costs, various types of units and sizes. More tension level stuff over here. You've got transport cost reductions, Warsaw Pact, strategic transport, Warsaw Pact logistical strain. Then you've got the SLOC combat table based on a value differential, the GI UK, Greenland, Iceland, UK front, and their values at the bottom. This is all naval related stuff here. Schleswig-Holstein, Afghan front. Okay, and we have 2 copies of that, as you might guess, being there are 2 players in the game. Okay, then you've got a lot of written material here. So you've got this as well, strategy and operations. So this chapter presents a possible mobilization plan for the Warsaw Pact and the possible NATO counter moves. Okay, so we'll go over this in more depth down the line when we play the game. This is the scenarios and designer notes. Pretty thick book, a lot of pages. Well, reasonable amount of pages. Wow. You can see there's a lot in here. Additional rules. Festung Berlin. Italy. Neutral countries. Mobilization. These are additional rules. This is probably, well, there are multiple games in this series. This is just the first one, and this is the 4th printing, I believe. Okay, so here's the introduction to the rule book. It says 1985 Under an Iron Sky is a brigade division level simulation of a Central European conflict between the Warsaw Pact and the North Atlantic Treaty Organization in 1985. The 5 maps cover the area from Denmark to northern Italy and from eastern France to western Poland and Czechoslovakia. The campaign game covers the period of tension leading up to the conflict and up to the first 50 days of war. A number of scenarios depict operations over smaller areas and shorter time periods. This booklet should be used when playing any 1985 module in combination with the specific scenarios booklet from each module. Okay, so here are the 3 games listed: Under an Iron Sky, Deadly Northern Lights, and Sacred Oil. Rules significantly different from the previous 1985 echelons are marked in blue. Then you've got your equipment here, all the things that are included in the box. The maps, they overlap. A white grid is superimposed on the map, subdividing it into blocks of 61 standard hexes called mega hex and used by air and naval movement. Okay. Counters, the scale. Okay, the scale is each hex is 14 kilometers. Each turn represents 2 days, and then the fractions are rounded down unless specified otherwise. Definition of terms, there are a lot of these. So we won't go over that. Let's take a quick look at the sequence of play. Assets phase, weather phase, tension phase, the convoy phase, the external events phase, WMD, the weapons of mass destruction release phase, SSM attack phase, surface-to-surface delivered chemical attacks, air superiority, nuclear strike, Eastern Bloc action phase, Western Bloc action phase, and end phase. And then this goes on. There's the movement rules. The text is pretty not large. I won't say it's small, but it's not large. And this rule book runs 39 pages. So I'm not going to go through the entire rule book and do a rules overview. We'll discuss, I'll either do one later or we'll just go over it as we play. And we've got some more stuff here. So this would be a air superiority chart. Looks like for the Warsaw Pact, as we've got the Russian here in the middle. Okay, then we have NATO. Right, it's the NATO one. So one for each, and then we've got our counters. So there are quite a few of these. Counter sheet 9R. So these are markers mostly. There are some units on here. As you can see, some aircraft, some EF-111, some A-10, the mighty Warthog, sorry. The Tornadoes, Great Britain's version, Harrier, and then some markers. And over here we have some German Tornadoes, the French Jaguars, a lot of markers. Okay, and then we have more markers here. These look like they come out pretty easy. They're very flexy. We've got markers here for NATO, it looks like. We've got some Warsaw Pact markers as well. We've got some nuclear and chemical type stuff. Revolt. That would be a revolting development. Haha. That is sheet 8. Here's sheet 7. Looks to be all markers. Lots thereof. Of course, they are all double-sided. The counter sheets are pretty thin. Thinner than, you know, some other games that I have. Some fuzz or something on there. More units. We've got some Czechs here, looks like. Some Poles. Everybody's got their flag, so you can tell who they are. We've got the East Germans up here. This would be counter sheet 6. I guess we're going in reverse order. Here's counter sheet 5, more units. And some aircraft. You can see, whoops, that's upside down. Some aircraft here. Some Soviet aircraft. That's Hungary. or East Germans. A lot of aircraft markers. Okay. And we've got more units here. Now you can see some ground units. We've got an HQ there. Got some divisions. You can see units of various sizes here. And of course, they are all double-sided. Well, I shouldn't say all, because apparently some of them are not, but the ones that are, you can see they're kind of reduced side, I guess. Okay, that would be number 4. Here's 3. And I keep picking them up upside down. So now we have some West Germans. So now we're on to the NATO side. We've got Denmark. We've got Austria. You can see here. And we have these guys here. We've got the French. We've got the United States. Oh, I'm sorry, the British. Netherlands, Italy. That green threw me off. I was expecting that to be the US of A, but it is actually the United Kingdom. And we've got more French over here and the aforementioned British. More aircraft there. And some helicopters. Some Dutch brigades. There's a division. Okay, this is probably the Americans. And yes, it is. We do have some Belgians here at the top. Then the Americans. So there is the some attack helicopters and the Huey. Some divisions. Canadians. More Americans. Some markers. That is the last of the counter sheets. And what do we have here? This looks to be these are the various fronts, I guess. So you have the Baltic front up here, the northern front here, central front, and southern front. Okay. Interesting. Here, this is NATO bases. I guess that was the Soviet bases. These are the NATO bases, right? Because you have Forces North, Northern Army Group, Central Army Group, and Allied Forces South at the bottom. Those are the base displays. Okay, and then we've got, it looks like a calendar maybe? This is going to have a big footprint. Okay, lines of communication. So look at this. This is interesting. We've got the Atlantic SLOC, the GIUK, and the various things in Europe. Our turn track, tension track, commitment track, some territory, box terrain, box type, box feature, connections, etc., movement points and modifiers. And we have reached the maps. So this would be a small single sheet covering Hungary and part of Austria and Czechoslovakia. And here we have the northern part. This would be northern Poland. and part of the Soviet Union there. Kaliningrad, formerly known as Königsberg. All right, here is the map, or part of the map, the lower part. This is the south, so you got the Alps running through here, I guess. And up here is Switzerland. We've got Liechtenstein right here. Here's Austria, and then Italy at the bottom. Right, you got a little. So Austria goes over to that direction. You got a little corner of Czechoslovakia up there, and southern Germany, Augsburg, Munich, etc. And of course France over here, and here as well. So that is the southern map. You get a decent look at the borders are yellow. Right, you can see some road. You can see the towns and the terrain. Mountains obviously here with a road running through it. Right, Innsbruck right here. You got Bolzano here and Trento here. Verona at the bottom. Here's Venice. Trieste over here. Milan. Okay, now we'll move on to the next map. Okay, now here we have the central map. So this is going to cover the, a very large chunk of where I would assume a lot of the combat will take place. So here's East Germany, Poland, okay, Karl-Marx-Stadt, right? So here's the East German, West German border, the inter-German border running right here, right? There's Kassel. There's Fulda, home of the famous Gap. Schweinfurt, Frankfurt am Main, Darmstadt, etc., right? Wiesbaden, and Köln, and Hanover, and Braunschweig, and all kinds of Bielefeld up there, etc., etc. And there's Bremen right at the top, okay? And then, of course, southern Germany here, Würzburg, Nuremberg, Stuttgart, Karlsruhe, Mannheim, and so on. And then France, of course, over here. So you got the Ruhr and the Rhineland and all that stuff. The Netherlands up here. Belgium, Belgium is here. But yeah, you can see the yellow lines for your borders. And here's Luxembourg. Okay, Karl-Marx-Stadt, which is Dresden. All right, now we'll take a look at the northern map. All right, here is the northern map. Denmark, a whole lot of Denmark, all of Denmark, in fact. Got the southern edge of Sweden here. And of course, the northern part of Germany and the Netherlands, and a little slice of Poland here on the very right end. So you've got the northern German cities, Hamburg being the big one. And here's Bremen again, so you got the overlap right at the bottom here, right? And of course, Denmark, as I mentioned. The North Sea, the Baltic Sea, the Kattegat. Yeah, and that is the entirety of the map. So this is a fairly large map. It will not fit on my table, I don't think. Be slightly too large as I look it over. But not, well, it's probably not quite a monster game, but it's probably close. So that is our look at Under an Iron Sky from the 1985 series from Thin Red Line Games. And that's going to do it for this one. So if you have any questions or comments, you know what to do. Post them in the comment section, and I'll do my best to get back to you as soon as I can. But we are done here. Until next time, I'm Joe. This is Hexed Encountered. And as always, happy gaming.